Morning, Colleen.
Good morning. How are you, Nicole?
I'm fantastic. I have a little
Good.
cold, I'm sure you can tell, but I think everyone's sick right now.
This time of the year, if you don't have a cold or if you haven't had one, I would like you to call me and tell me what your regimen is.
I know. And I have a regimen, you know that. I'm a
Oh,
witch
I'm
doctor
well
by trade.
aware. I'm
hmm
sure there's like some kind of crazy witch doctor voodoo stuff going on.
Yeah, this winter is, whatever. But I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, actually. I'm fortunately healthy right now, despite having a 9-year-old son who's in the school system.
Oh my gosh, knock on wood.
Yep.
Okay, so today I wanted to kick this off to introduce to our audience a new concept that we're going to be doing this year, you and I.
Mhm.
We always keep these topics short, sweet, relevant. I joke that I'm the prototypical for our listeners in terms of attention span. We always try to keep things as quick as possible, kind of for a car ride or whatever, what have you.
Mhm.
And our goal in a lot of this is to break down things that we're seeing so that it's just easy to digest,
Yeah.
and maybe even give you some talking points for going out, talking about it to your clients, things like that. So what Colleen and I are going to do going forward is one micro topic per month. We're going to come out with, and if there's something really relevant that comes out at any given point, we may just jump on and do that at that time. So right now, one thing that just keeps coming up is off-market properties.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot of people don't want to touch, don't want to talk about, especially given the current environment and some things that are going on. But we had a lot of conversations ourselves. It's been coming up and we've been talking about it in our sales meetings. And we just felt like it was a good thing to come on and discuss, just to take a little bit of a deeper dive into if it's something you're considering, if you're a seller, or if it's something you're considering presenting to a seller, perhaps. Here's the real picture of what you should be talking through, because it's something that feels a little too popular right now. And we're afraid that it might be getting out of control in ways that people aren't realizing. So can
Yeah.
you kick us off, Colleen, with just given that?
Absolutely. So we've seen off-market properties, and but what we mean by off-market, actually, we should probably even say that,
Yeah.
is that these properties are not going into the local MLS or the regional MLS, depending on where you are. So an MLS it just means multiple listing service. So it's where the local listings are being offered to the public in general. And not only does the MLS allow agents to see what's happening in the marketplace, but it feeds to third-party websites like Zillow and a bunch of others out there that consumers use to search for property. So there have been times, forever that the length of time that we've been in the business and since before, that there are circumstances where it does make sense for a property to be off market and to go through a full sale that way and be offered sort of on in a private manner, on a one-to-one, either a whisper campaign or something else like that. And I think of examples where, for instance, it's a celebrity couple or something like that, and there's a concern about privacy and security. So that is a very real concern if you've got someone who is in the public eye and they are concerned about the security of themselves or their family. So in that circumstance, they're likely to want to do it off market, or that's one of the options that they will sometimes take. Not always. I mean, we've definitely seen properties that have belonged to celebrities that have traded on the market through an MLS search. There are other circumstances. There might be a difficulty within the family where this needs to be done quietly and
Yeah, something, I mean, we can
discreetly.
just say it, like a divorce or something where maybe
Yes.
you don't want to just, even if your neighbors are going to know what's going on, we don't want to publicize it. We want to just get this done. It really comes down to the money. So I've sold obviously something off market, and it was just a matter of, it was honestly for tax reasons. We had bought something that we thought we were going to hold. We had a better opportunity. There was a neighbor interested, and we needed that closing date to be much further out than it would have typically been.
Yeah.
We knew the neighbor, and we just felt like, you know what, this number works for us because the tax ramifications, there's reasons to do it.
Mhm.
So I think that that's what we want to really hit home. We're not saying that anyone that offers it or that it's always a bad thing.
Right.
There are times, sometimes a lot of times it's a matter of just timing. And
Mhm.
sometimes you just say, I don't really care what I'm leaving on the table for
That's
whatever
right.
reason. But that's, I think, what we need to get into is there is always going to be, I still wonder with that, what we maybe left on the table,
Yes.
was it really going to be a wash? That's what
Right.
you're always going to have to wonder.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we want to get into, and get into what someone should be thinking about if this option's presented to them. And also we should get into, in some cases, who it really benefits, because I think that that's not coming up sometimes as well.
Yeah, and I think the ultimate question you're asking yourself whenever you're weighing your options in terms of different strategies is what are the pros and cons of both, and what are the risks of each of the approaches, right? So if you think about it from a risk standpoint, when you're limiting the number of people who are looking, you are potentially eliminating the person who would have paid the most or given you the best terms in many circumstances in a number of different ways. So when you think about the market that we've been in for a while now, so even prior to COVID in some cases, depending on where you're looking and what you're looking at, we have had a lack of inventory. And all that means is that there's not enough supply for the number of buyers who are out there. That puts sellers in a good position. And oftentimes, the best terms and best price come from getting a bunch of buyers coming together and competing against one another. So the challenge you run into when you do it off market is maybe you've got one offer and you don't have as much leverage. The only leverage you have at that point is to say, well, maybe we'll just go to the open market. But the reality is that it's in those circumstances where you've got multiple buyers and potentially more coming at any given moment saying, this is what I'm willing to pay. This is what we're willing to do. We're willing to allow you to stay in the house after closing, which has happened at different times. You obviously want to get an attorney involved if you're going to do something like that. But there are circumstances that can allow sellers to be able to dictate terms that are going to actually suit them. And if you've got a lot of buyers who are competing against each other, then they're going to outcompete when it comes to what are we going to offer them in terms of money, how much of it's going to be cash, maybe the whole thing, which then you don't have to worry about appraisals and everything else, So there are different strategies that you can employ when you're going to list on the open market that actually grant you more
Yes.
possibility. And I think the thing is, when you think about it, you go to the open market, I don't have questions at the end. Like, did we get the most for our
Right.
property? Because for most people, that is their greatest asset. So to be able to have this situation where you could say, we don't have any questions. We offered it on the open market. We got it out to all of the potential audience. We got a bunch of offers in. This is the way that this worked. Versus we did it off market and I'm just never going to know if we
Yeah.
got
And
the
I think
most for
that's
it.
really, to me, that is what the whole thing hinges on. It's okay if you're going to wonder, but you have to be comfortable with the fact that that's not your priority.
Right.
Your priority might look different. And then you might want to take the option of off market. And I think that that's really what it boils down to. If your priority is getting the best terms and the highest price,
Yeah.
you really should be putting it in front of the most people. And I think that if the seller understands that the fact that the agent and the brokerage has a fiduciary duty to them to be sure that that is what they're doing, right? Unless the seller says this one set of terms is most important to me and I would like privacy, or I would like for some reason, then that is within, you're going to do what they ask you to do. But I think that that's what we want to make sure is being explained, because we're seeing it way too much. I know that we had one example in the South End, an agent that's been in the business for 40 plus years. Recently, last spring, she had someone that knows that she's been in that neighborhood for that long, knows she's been selling real estate for that long, and knows she has great relationships with brokers and agents in the area. And he just said, can you just put this out to your Rolodex and, move it? This is my number. And, I'm hoping to get, but I know you can do that. Like, let's not go through the whole rigmarole. And she was like, no, I've been doing this for this long that I will tell you that you're going to be way better served if I do all the work to put it on the market and negotiate all the yes, like to your point, the inventory is tight. So if you're going to put something on off market, you're going to get offers. If you're going to get 10 offers, someone's going to find you an offer off market, but that's not the goal, right? The goal is to see what the best terms are. And this person told me and told the whole meeting when it came up that, he kind of argued with her and she said, please just trust me, let me do this. And that she had like 6 offers or something. And she told him, for the record, not one of these people was a close personal friend of mine in terms of clients or agents. And they weren't anyone that would have seen the property. Does that mean you wouldn't have got I don't know, but that should tell you something. And I think most of the most seasoned agents do feel that that's the best thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Unless there's special circumstance.
Well, and I think what you're thinking about for most people, again, it's their greatest asset. You get one shot at realizing the value out of that property. One shot. It's not like if we try it on the off market and it goes under agreement and later on someone says, oh, I would have paid 100,000 more. You can go, oh, yeah, let me just get the property back and we'll do it again. It's no, once it's closed, it's closed. And once you've got an accepted offer as an individual seller, it's as good as closed. And if you try to back out of that deal, then there are going to be ramifications because of that. So you really need to think about what is my priority here? And is it to realize the true value of this property, or is there something else? Again, privacy being a big one, or security, or something else that's saying, I don't care if it's 100,000 less than I might have gotten. That's not as big a priority to me right now. The bigger priority is the security of my family because I'm a billionaire or because I'm a celebrity or whatever, something like that. So those circumstances do exist, which I am both of those things.
Yes. So like anything, there's always exceptions. This isn't us saying that anyone that's doing this is a terrible real estate agent. Like, by no means. No, things happen. There's different trends in the market. There's different reasons why people want to do this. It is tight inventory. Chances are you will be able to sell off market if you so choose. And so it's a tool. It's something in the toolbox. There's various reasons to use it. I think that the critical piece in what we wanted to get on today to talk about, because we've talked about it in all of our office meetings in the last month and got great feedback and felt like, you know what, this is something that would maybe be helpful. Let's just be sure we're covering ourselves too in saying, this is our duty. This is what we feel like it would be your best option for these reasons. And if you have a reason why we should do it off market, that's great. Let's just talk through what those reasons would be. So one piece that I kind of wanted to close out with is companies that are marketing to sellers that they're only putting it out among themselves.
Yeah. That's concerning.
That isn't something that I can say I could think of a circumstance that would be a good thing, mostly because of the example I just gave. As a brokerage, we can go ahead and say, of course, that's what you want, right? As an agent, like, it's just like an agent. Keeping it in-house means that you get both sides. That's not serving the seller.
Well, let's just call it out. I mean, there have been circumstances over the years where agents or companies have developed a reputation for having what's called pocket listings in the industry. And the goal for that agent or for that company is to try to get commission on both sides of the deal. So what they're trying to do there is to not only serve the seller, but to also make sure that they're always serving the buyer. And they do that by keeping the listing private. The concern, of course, that we have always is that really getting the best terms for both the buyer and the seller?
Yep.
And we just don't know that. The reality is in a free market economy, the market dynamics actually create a circumstance where everybody's operating on a fair playing field, right? The level playing field. And that's what we're always hoping for, because that is going to get our sellers the best. And again, for a buyer to be out in the marketplace looking, they're going to know that they haven't overpaid for a property. That's another set of those circumstances. Did I pay way too much? Well, not if you were competing against a group of other people and you're trying to figure out what am I going to offer and where am I comfortable? So the reality is, there, again, as we've said, there are some circumstances. It's a rather narrow slice of the pie, but there are some circumstances where it makes sense to do an off-market property, do an off-market listing, an off-market sale. But the concern always is, are your best interests being looked at? Are your best interests being pushed forward? And that's the ultimate question. And that's what our goal was to say. If you're a consumer listening to this, ask the right questions and know when you should think, this sounds like it might not be in my best interest. It might be in yours. That's right. If you're an agent listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like this is coming up so much. How am I going to explain these options to people? Because I don't want to not be able to speak to it, because sometimes it's a good option. And I want to make sure that they don't feel like it's self-serving. Hopefully this is helpful for you too, really laying it out there and being able to speak to that. But definitely something to think about if someone's saying, oh, I'll only offer it out
to these people in my company, will people even advise a seller, I know this agent, I've done a deal with them, whether they're in their company or in another one. They're incredible. They'll get the deal done. I know that's important to you. Those conversations do happen too. And I know that people want to work with people that they know in the seller's best interest sometimes, because they say, you know, I know this will happen or whatever it might be. But that's something that you should be able to choose when the offers are on the table versus only being offered to people that are within one company or that knows. So again, just all food for thought. None of this is us calling anybody one thing bad. It's just let's all understand, especially in the current climate, that we're a little bit under a microscope, that we're doing the best we can by the consumer, and we're being completely transparent in all of this.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transparency is huge.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.